Happy Wine Wednesday, everybody. Me and Holly are the only ones in the cheer of the here. Holly, what are you sipping on?
This is a tropical mocktail I made. It's got pineapple juice, lavender lemonade, orange juice, and then it's topped with tropical 7 Up.
So I'm
It's
going to have
really
to,
tasty.
when I come to see you, I'm going to have to try it. We'll make
Oh,
Sean try.
yeah. It's delicious.
I switched it up tonight. I'm trying to slow down my roll on the wine, right? Because Chardonnay is my thing. You guys know it.
Mhm.
But now that I've got this important job, I can't, the Chardonnay has to go. So we're doing Pinot Noir because it's more sippable. I don't, like drink it. I sip it. So yeah, on the Pinot Noir with my lovely Seahorse glass. But yeah, tonight is open chat. I've got Ray, Holly, and Sophie with me. We're going to talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. But if you don't ask a question about seahorses, we're going to talk about what we want to talk about and just be a community of people that love saltwater aquariums and seahorses. Um, and yeah, I do go visit Holly and I plan to go visit Ray. We talked about that before the stream. I won't share. And Miss Sophie is my protege. She is Seahorse Whisperer Junior for sure. So let's catch up with everybody, see where everybody's at. But if you're in the comment section, don't forget, if you don't catch the stream live and you catch it later, just ask the question in the comment section. We do go back and read them. We do cover the questions later in different streams. And, we're here to be a fun community. All right. Holly, what were you telling us before the stream that you noticed was going
Oh, well, we were just talking about next week. It's time for me to change the char in the Robert King char chambers.
Yeah.
And so then I mentioned to Kelly, I just saw on Facebook Robert King's having a major tank crash right now. Um, it looks like he's lost 600 plus fish, so almost all his fish. I don't believe he's figured out why. At first, he was thinking, I think, carbon monoxide or something, but I guess it turned out it wasn't that. Possibly lack of oxygen in the room, but he's losing all his fish. It's heartbreaking.
And we know it's not the chambers because, I mean, they work in all things. So it's not that. Oh my gosh. We're going to have to
Yeah,
ask them back.
here's what he wrote. He says it is with a heavy heart that I am writing this post. I recently went through a traumatic tank crash, wiping out the large majority of my beautiful clownfish. I tried to overcome this catastrophe and I thought I would get through it. I came home today to my 33 years in captivity male clownfish dying.
Oh,
He is in a totally different system and I am devastated. Thank you all for your support over my years on Facebook. 52 years of breeding has come to a not so happy ending.
so is he like, I'll reach out to him personally to give my
Yeah,
condolences and also ask, like, he doesn't mean he's done, right?
he
Maybe
doesn't know. He doesn't know. He did post there's one of his females still alive. One of the I think this is the maybe the female that was one of the oldest breeders he had, but the
so.
male he lost the male.
And the thing is, it really does take true passion. We tell you guys sometimes when you guys tune into this live stream, you hear like the worst stories. Robert King of all people is, losing his fish. That's terrible. Or, Seahorse Whisperer, had a tank wiped out. It's happened to me too.
It
and it's
happens
awful.
to all of us.
It
It
does happen.
happens. I've
But
had it happen to me.
one of the things we really try to be clear about is the fact that it doesn't happen to everybody. It does depend on what you're doing. And, like people like Holly, myself, and Robert King are maybe doing multiple things and bigger tanks and stuff. So, keeping seahorses is not difficult. You can do it if you follow the rules, prepare early, do it right, etc. But there is always the chance that some catastrophe happens. I mean,
There's some stuff you just can't control.
you get
Like
it,
floods,
it
fires, all
flood,
kinds of stuff.
fires, natural disasters, or you even get a child that's your friend's child that comes in and and
Dump
throws
something
like
in your
whatever.
tanks.
Yeah, I mean
Tries to
stuff
feed the
just
fish.
happens,
Yeah.
and it's devastating. And it takes, I think personally, and this is what I'm going to talk to Robert about when I talk to him, is that it takes true passion to say, this sucks, I hate it, cry a bit, have your moment, grieve, and then start again. Because
Mhm.
I've started again with seahorses, what, 4 times? 4 times, yeah, because whatever was happening in my life, I just couldn't handle it anymore. Stuff went bad, and I couldn't move. And I took a moment. I made sure that I got things set up the way I wanted them to start again. And I just love them so much, I can't not keep them, right?
Mhm.
But most people can just set up a tank and be lucky and go for it. It just depends on what you're trying to achieve. If you're trying to have fry, things are different, but it is devastating and something that can happen to anybody. And it sucks when it happens to somebody who's so large scale.
Mhm.
Really
Well,
sucks.
and especially when you've had fish for that long. Like he's had the same fish for 30 years. That's like your dog, your cat that you love,
Your
that's
husband, 30
devastating.
years. I mean, who has a husband for 30 years these days,
Mm-hmm.
right? But he had a clown. Sophie, Rick is who? You know?
Rick is the one who I was talking about last week.
Okay.
The one with I don't even know, 54 years of experience. The one that I was talking about last week that I said that hopefully he could come. And I
Yes.
talked a little bit to him.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So Bella Seahorse the Beauty, I see you. Hello. And Rick, you need to get with me on the side or with Sophie on the side because we'd love to have you in as a guest. Like you can come and just chat in the comment section. That's cool. But we'd love to have you in as a guest where you're actually part of the video. So get with one of us on the side. All right. So we're gonna reach out to Robert King. And why do we love Robert King so much other than he's just awesome?
Yeah,
Holly, go ahead.
he is. Well, I mean, he helped me with the char chamber things and how to use it. He goes live and he shares, his fish and what he's doing and helps so many people in the community
So,
with
so
how
tell
to
me
breed the
about,
clownfish and be
yes,
successful. So he's so giving. He helps everybody. That.
absolutely. And tell me about the char chambers. What breached our communities is this
Mhm.
char chamber that he
Mhm.
made for his clownfish breeding, but has been like a game changer in the seahorse world. Talk about that a little
Yeah,
bit.
so it's a combination of mechanical and biological filtration. It's basically like a sponge filter filled with aqua char or his own char that he produces now, I think, and it's hooked to an airline. My seahorses love it really keeps the water clear. I figured when I first put it in, I mean, I've had them for so long now, I can't tell the difference.
Right, right,
My water's pretty clear all the time, and I
right.
can't, I can't say that it's all because of that. but I
Mhm.
did notice a difference when I first put it in.
Yep.
So, and the
And like I
seahorse
was
is
saying,
like,
it's like we've got videos. Go back and watch previous videos. But it's got the sponge filter. Then it's got a chamber that has, so it's using the sponge to be a mechanical filtration, right? Stopping all the gunk
Mhm.
from going into this filtration system. And then it's got the chamber that has either Aquachar or Robert King's personal made char that not only works as a like a charcoal, like what's the name of one of the other ones, guys? It's not called char, it's called charcoal. What do they call
Yeah,
it?
there's different brands of it. You know, the
But
charcoal you put in your
typical
aquarium. But
char, so your typical char is one thing, but this, they have done extensive research and testing and made it to where not only does it work as a charcoal, but then it continues to work as a biofilter, right? So
mhm.
it's got this multi-use purpose in this chamber. And then it also creates bubbles, which means oxygenation for the tank. And the seahorses love it. Mine fight over it. They hitch on the top and get bubbles up their little boutoirs, and they love it. They will sit in it and bubbles up on them constantly. So he just came up with this really cool invention. And, we have much respect for him. So we want to see how he's doing. We want to promote his product, of course. And, we'll get him in here live to talk about what's going on with him. And I'm sure someone like him won't give up. So we're going to cross fingers and hope for that. Sophie, what's going on with you? I think something new. Hey, Zen Ginger. What's
I
new?
So we were talking about it last week that I had the little bit of aptasia that I do. So I decided to get 2 peppermint shrimp, and I got them on Sunday, I think. Now I got them from Cultured by Science,
Wait, time out. Why did you get peppermint shrimp?
so they would eat my aptasia.
Okay, what's aptasia? We got to think somebody brand new coming in here doesn't know what we're talking about. What's aptasia? Oh, she's having a thing. So, parents. So,
Okay.
aptasia. Okay, go ahead. What's aptasia?
Aptasia, I don't know what would you call it a coral?
It's an anemone.
Anemone, I think they are.
Okay. And it's
Anemone.
like
But it's an ugly, yucky one unless you're
A
into it.
pest anemone.
yeah.
Right. I was gonna say my girlfriend in Michigan, she has an anemone tank. That's beautiful. Likes
Scott
to
liked him. He made a little tank for him.
but in your average tank, the thing is they can sting. So if you have seahorses, in a reef tank, it's not as crucial because fish usually don't hitch to something and sit where they could get stung, or they won't go and try to snick food from a spot that's just sitting there where an aptasia might be. I had a female literally try to snick a piece of mysis out of an anemone or an aptasia. The aptasia anemone is like this, right? It's got its mouth right here, and it's just stuck in the rock, and it's got its little tentacles, and a piece of mysis came here, and it's got its tentacle coming in to bring it to its mouth, and here comes my big old seahorse. And the seahorse wants to snick it, and then anemone's like, sting! Right? I mean, I'm
Yeah.
doing perfect theater now. Sorry.
It was very good. Yay.
Right. But you get my drift. They can sting things, especially slow moving things, especially seahorses. So we don't want an anemone in a seahorse tank if at all possible.
Aptasia.
Sorry, thank you, aptasia, which is an anemone, but
Specifically aptasia.
actually I stand by my comment. We don't want any anemone
Yeah.
at all in a seahorse tank. But for this conversation, thank you, Holly, we're talking about aptasia. So you got the peppermint shrimp to eat the aptasia?
Not yet. No, I haven't. Okay, so I haven't seen the shrimp a ton. I got it on Sunday. I think I saw them like a total of twice, and they just kind of been staying underneath the rock in my
Yep.
pistol shrimp's like old caves. So for now, all of my Aptasia is still there.
Yes.
I do know that they are true peppermint shrimp, though.
Okay, good.
So I
So
just
wait, I'm going to interrupt again. So Sophie just made, I'm sorry guys, but one major point when you're going to try to use peppermint shrimp to curb the formation of Aptasia in a seahorse tank, you do have to make sure they're actually peppermint shrimp, because a lot of stores will sell red shrimp and say, hey, they're peppermints, and they're not. So you made sure they were correct, and go ahead. They've hidden since, right?
yeah, they've hidden since then. They came out briefly today when I did a water change. It just kind of seemed like they were curious what was going on. No, I've only seen one of them. So at least I know that they weren't a very expensive snack for
Good. Good. Explain that a bit further, or I will. Okay, I'm interrupting again. But depending on your species of seahorse, if you have like reed-eye, the big, huge, whatever, and you add any kind of shrimp to a tank, I remember Lucy, her shrimp would eat any, or I'm sorry, her seahorses would eat any shrimp, period. Like it, peppermint shrimp were snacks. Whereas usually with directed, they won't mess with them. And that's what you're experiencing. They don't mess with them. So go ahead.
I mean, my seahorses did look a little bit at them. They were kind of intrigued by what they were, but their little antennas, they bother my seahorses. They don't like that when the antennas touch them.
Yeah.
Love it. Okay, go on.
And the pistol shrimp didn't care about it, apparently. I remember you
Yeah.
were worried about that.
That's what my main concern was, but they never came in contact, or at least I know that one of my shrimp is still alive, so I'm assuming the other one also didn't become food for the pistol shrimp.
Mm-hmm.
They never really came in contact, though. I don't think the pistol shrimp really cares. He's never really cared about the other living things in the tank.
So we have another question about another pest. But before we jump to that, so you've added the peppermint shrimp. They're not eating the Aptasia. Did you take my advice and ask whomever you bought the peppermint shrimp from to not feed them prior to selling them?
So that was one thing, because I talked to Demo, obviously, before. I asked him, like, if I could have these, and I suggested this, but he didn't really think that it was necessary. He said it wasn't really necessary, so we never did it, obviously, because I don't have anywhere to keep them, and if he doesn't want to, I'm not forcing him to keep it in the tank.
Sure. But I mean, you can just not feed the tank? Like, that's all I was saying is, so
well, no, because
I saw into my pet store or wherever where I'm buying the peppermint shrimp or whoever I'm talking to, I'm like, can you just not feed the tank for one day?
Well, sorry, I'm making little.
Or they could put them aside in the box like you have your corals in, or something for you. But I understand, because you're there at the store at the day, and there they are, and they might not have them tomorrow. So I totally get it.
So for anyone out there that's
I
trying
didn't do that to mine either, and mine ate the Aptasia, but they hid for a couple days first. They were scared, and then they came out.
That's the point that we're at. In my case, I'm a very impatient person. If you guys know me, I'm like, go, Peps, go. So my answer was based on what Dan suggested, and basically ask whoever you're buying them from, don't feed them for a day, because then they come in hungry. Because the problem with the seahorse tank is there's so much food constantly. And if you're, but I do know like that Sophie does more target feeding. So there's not a lot of leftovers that the peppermints can come scavenge and, eat. So I think it'll still work out. We're going to talk more about it. But if you're in a tank where you're broadcast feeding and you're not super comfortable with the fact that you don't have leftovers everywhere, the peppermint will go after the food first. It's easier. It doesn't fight back, whatever. Versus if they're starving, they're going to go after the aptasia because it's food and it's there. And before you go feeding the seahorses this ton of food, they'll eat the aptasia first, kind of thing. But as Holly said, in her case, she didn't do that, and they still ate after hiding for a few days. So, Sophie, you got to keep us updated because they could go. And I would. So, Ray, what are your thoughts about feeding less for a minute? Because my whole concern with peppermint shrimp is just that they'll eat mices. I mean, they'd rather eat that.
They'd rather eat that than the aptasia.
So if you're feeding seahorses constantly, 4 times a day, whatever, then they're never going to go after the aptasia. So maybe if you, I'm not a proponent of. Oh, Ray left. He didn't like the question. All right. No, he probably had a technical thing. But I'm just saying for anybody out there that I'm not a proponent. There's a lot of people that do fasting, like fast their seahorses for a day or 2 a week. I'm not a proponent. Like, I don't think it makes any difference. We're not worried about fatty. I'm not worried about fatty tissue with seahorses. So I don't do that. So I feed my seahorses every day, multiple times a day. And those peppermint shrimp are going to take it on, right? So I'm just saying, if the store won't not feed them that day, and you add them and they're hiding and they're not taking care of the aptasia, what about feeding the seahorses less just for a day or 2? Thoughts, Holly?
Yeah, that could work. I mean, honestly, when I had the peppermint shrimp, it was like it was right after I found the aptasia. And I scooped it out of the sand, with a little cup. And then I didn't see any more, but I got the peppermint shrimp just to make sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I never saw them again. Never saw aptasia again after that. But I will say the peppermint shrimp, when I first got them, I didn't see them for a very long time. And sometimes I would go like a month without seeing them at all, or maybe even more.
Right.
And then for after a while, they kind of got friendly and they'd come out like when I fed the seahorses, like I'd said, and they'd eat with the seahorses.
Right.
So, once they got comfortable. So, I mean, I assume that if there was any aptasia, they were eating it, or I would have had aptasia.
Right.
I can't believe I only had that one that I scooped out of the sand. There had to have been more that I couldn't see or whatever, but I've never. And then I switched, that was when I had rock and sand and everything. And now I'm all artificial. So,
Right.
So I don't have any of that now. But yes, I did have bristle worms at that time too.
Yeah. Well, let's give Ray anything you want to say about peppermint shrimp before we move on to bristle worm, Ray.
Nope.
No. Okay. There you go. All right. Then Ginger
wants to just the usual. We got to make sure they're a true peppermint shrimp. That's all.
Yep. Zen Ginger wants to know, any of you ever get bristle worms? Are they as terrifying as they seem?
They're pretty ugly. They're
scurry.
Yeah, they're like a worm with they're bright red worm with little white hairs all over them, and they're a pest. They're in a seahorse tank. They're bad because they can sting the seahorses. They can sting you. I've never been stung by one, but yeah, they have little stickers all over them. And
so
my husband liked him. He put him in a pest tank and kept him.
Your husband does that to every pest. Cool. All right, so hey, Fish Fam Link, I see you out there. And you guys, if you're interested in saltwater tanks, even if you're not into seahorses, Fish Fam Links has the links for every creator, every saltwater, anybody enthusiast, go to Fish Fam links for sure. We need to put up links. We need to put up more links. But also, where did it go? He said, "Don't pet them." Where'd it go?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Adam.
they'll
So
get.
Rick said, "Don't." No, that's not it.
Oh
Sorry.
my gosh, 4 feet long.
Don't pet the bristleworms.
No,
Absolutely. Do not try to
don't
grab.
pick them up. Yeah, don't
No,
pick them up with your hands.
those stingers will sting you along with seahorses. And we want to talk about bristleworms, but real quick, Rick did also bring up nudibranchs.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody tried those for aptasia? We're backing up a minute to aptasia.
No,
Anybody?
mainly because if they're successful and eliminate your population, they die off.
Yep.
I had a tiny one that I got a tiny one, and he disappeared in my tank after a few days and never saw him again. So
One of the things that's kind of sucks, right, is that when you're trying to deal with a problem like aptasia, a normal person they don't come to Wine Wednesday, which is where they should come, right? Because we're going to tell them what to do. Instead, they go to their fish store. And if their fish store happens to have nudibranchs, they're going to say, "Oh, yeah, this is what you need." I actually, when I had my aptasia problem, I called not a fish store, but an actual nudibranch breeder, and he talked me through it. And he decided with me that my tank was not going to work for nudibranchs because they're slow. If you have an infestation, they're not going to do it in time before something's hurt or something goes wrong. They're too slow. Whereas if you have a couple, or if you have a very few animals in the tank and whatnot, that you're not really worried about them getting stung, the nudibranchs will work for sure. They will work, but they're going to take a month longer than peppermint shrimp, right? So it's more about, are you capable within your tank to give the nudibranchs the time to eat the aptasia at their temperature? And then again, Ray said, then you got to feel guilty because if you don't have aptasia anymore, that's all they eat.
they're out of food. Yeah, give them to somebody else.
Right. You have to. A trading thing is really cool because if you use them and they work, and then you put up on Wine Wednesday or wherever, hey, who needs nudibranchs? Then you can trade them. But I'm just saying, when I talked to the breeder, he was honest with me, which was really cool, because he was like, okay, for your tank size and your infection, you're gonna need like 20 of them.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't expect any difference within a month. And I was like, I can't do that. And he was like, no, you can't. And what are you going to do with those 20 once they're big, fat, have had babies and you have no more aptasia? So it's thinking about all the creatures and what affects them, and that kind of thing. I'm still peppermint shrimp, guys.
We had discussed this before, and as I said, like in my 21 years, I never ever had them in the Seahorse tanks, and that I did have them in the reef tank. But to me, the biggest thing was to reduce the food that they have available to them. And with the seahorses, I never had that problem in the first place because I was already controlling the food and controlling what was left over and getting it removed just for the seahorse benefit. But in the reef tank, I hadn't done that, and I didn't have any other real problems. So the aptasia were there, and when I first had them, I didn't realize that they were multiplying because their food source was so great.
Right.
And so the combination of controlling that food source, lowering that food content that was in the water, plus uh, the acid treatment that I had discussed before, between the two of them, I got rid of them and never ever had them again.
Yeah. mean, hey, works for you, right? And Rick Cohen said he did exactly that. He traded them to someone that needed them. I mean, it's not a bad method. I'm not saying it can't work. In my particular situation, I had an explosion because I listened to all the online crap that said, "Oh, you see an aptasia? Oh gosh, just stick it with a needle of lemon juice." Please don't do that. Please don't do that. Not only do you have to hit that aptasia exactly in the mouth and get the lemon juice into its system, and chances are you're not going to do that, especially if you're me. And you know, oh, come on. But also, if you piss the aptasia off, it spits out more aptasia. And that sounds like some crazy psycho weird thing, but it's the truth. And they can spit spores, and then you've got aptasia everywhere. And in my case, I had an explosion because I was trying to mess with them and kill them, the 3 that I had, and then all of a sudden I had 50 all over my tank, stinging my seahorses, making a mess. No. And so again, I was very thankful to this owner that told me, you know, nudibranchs aren't going to work for you. Go with peppermint shrimp. So, but there are also chemical ways to treat this. And I did see, we want to move on to bristleworms. And I saw, we're going to get to your Bella. We're going to talk about Asteroid stars too. Gosh, this is going to be a fun night. But
past night.
Bella said, I'm getting rid of all my bristleworms in my Seahorse tanks. Getting new rock. Will getting new rock get rid of worms?
Not necessarily if they're in your system, like if you're still using the same sand, if they're in your sump somehow or hiding somewhere. I mean, I got rid of them all when I removed all my rock and sand. Ended the bristleworm problem completely. So
I think Bella went bare bottom, didn't she?
Bella, I don't know. I don't know if she went bare bottom, but
I don't think
bare
so.
bottom and then removing the rock. What else? Why would there still be bristleworms?
well, like I said, if they happen to be in your sump or somewhere else in some crevice or whatever, then they could transfer into your new rock. And so
for anyone that doesn't know,
I was lucky that never happened to me though. So it doesn't necessarily happen, but it could, I suppose.
Let me see if I can find really quickly a picture of a bristleworm. They're not fun. All right, let's see if I can share this. All right, so a bristleworm. Can you guys see this? Can you see it, Holly?
Yeah.
All right. So this is not a bristleworm. This is.
I was just say that's not a good image, but the one next to it, the gray and red, is.
So if a worm has a bunch of squigglies like that, it's a spaghetti worm or a different kind of worm. Bristleworms are this, and they have pointy, sharp, stingy, ugly, yucky. Ooh, I hate bristleworms.
And they come in all sizes. They could be teeny tiny where you can barely see them, or giant. I've seen a giant one in my tank, and I was like, oh no.
And the thing is, like, they can take different shape forms or whatnot. But here's the thing. They're just like an earthworm. If you don't remember from science class or being a little hooligan, if you break a worm in half, it becomes 2 worms, right?
And they are elusive. You can try to catch them and they will get away. They're fast. They disappear. Like they'll come out of rocks, eat. You try to catch them and they go back in, or they go in the sand.
Well, and I was going to say, the thing is, people have talked about using tweezers to tear him out of a rock. No. If his little interrupter hangs on, he's a new worm in your rock. I mean, yeah. I don't
Yeah.
like them. I don't even
No,
have.
I had traps, and yeah, the traps worked, but not well enough because I still had them even with the trap. So,
Well, but I don't think it's a game. How many people have had Seahorse tanks and had a few bristleworms? If it's not an explosion, and I'm
I have
not
to say they never caused a problem. They never got a seahorse. I
right.
mean, they can, but I never had anything happen because of that.
So if you realize you have them, do everything you can to get rid of them. Set traps, maybe replace rock. But I mean, it's not anything to like say, "Oh, I give up and I'm breaking down the tanks." No, you're okay. Thank you for sharing the FitCam links, Zen. I know the chat's always behind for me, guys. I'm sorry if I'm a little bit behind. But Bella did ask about. I always have a problem with this pronunciation. Asteria stars, Asturia.
Yeah.
How do you say it?
I say it hysteria, but I don't know if I'm right because I've never heard it. I've only read it.
That's
All
different
right.
from the Astorina.
So
They're the little teeny ones that get on the glass.
That's Astorina, as far as I know. And yes, they
So
are.
it's Astorina then.
So here's what we're talking about, guys, just to be clear. Oh, perfect picture. All right, here we go. Here's what we're talking about. If we're talking about the same thing, tell us, Bella. But I think we're talking about this guy,
Yeah,
right?
Astorina.
The little white star that, I mean, hey, it's kind of cute. No, they're not cute. They suck. They're
They'll
terrible.
suck a hole in your seahorse if they
That's
get
right.
on him.
That right there is a mouth. I'm not kidding. And the problem with seahorses, right, is that let me stop sharing this. The problem with seahorses is that they're sedimentary. Did I say that wrong? Anyway,
Yeah,
right? They sit still.
they're
So
sedentary.
thank you, Holly. So they're gonna hitch on their Gorgonian and they're gonna go to sleep, right? And they're chilling, lights are out, and then the starfish comes out to eat algae. Well, guess what?
The
Seahorses
seahorse has
grow
algae.
algae on
Yeah.
their skin to camouflage. So the starfish doesn't mean to hurt the seahorse, but
It
it's
just
like
eat
eating
algae.
algae, and oh, here's some more algae, and it's going up the seahorse body, and then it ends up biting a hole in the seahorse as it's eating the algae off the seahorse, which is not good, can lead to bacterial infections.
Yeah.
So, anyways, point being, again, not a thing where, oh my God, I saw a white starfish on my glass. I got to, close down my tank. No, it's not the end of the world, but it is something you should try to alleviate. How have you guys dealt with these starfish?
Well, back a few years ago, we had this discussion when that barb tank that I had behind me here. I had an Astorine on there, and while I had it off before we had our Wednesday night thing, I have some recollection now that I put the post or put the picture up showing the Astorina on it, and then showing it the wound on it after I took it off. You remember that?
Yes.
That's a long time ago, but was at the time that was my first experience with them, and I didn't want another one. But basically, I just made sure that I had all the nutrient levels down, and I picked off whatever I saw when I saw them, and eventually it got so I never saw any again.
Holly, anything to add?
I never had a problem with them.
So I did, and I don't have an answer, unfortunately. I was a picker, just like Ray said. Every time I saw them, I grabbed them. Every time until they were no more. And they do reproduce like crazy little mofos. But I haven't come across an answer for, oh yeah, throw this in the tank, they're gone, or, whatever.
Or
No.
something eats them, or
Yeah, because usually there's not really a chemical thing. Like Ray was saying, it's more about controlling your organics in your tank and making sure you're not overfeeding the tank. You have to overfeed seahorses to an extent, but you don't overfeed the tank. So yeah. That being said,
I mean, I had them, and I asked Demo actually.
Wait, let's make her big. Okay, go.
I asked Demo about them, and he said they were fine. So I actually didn't do anything about them, and I saw like one or maybe two of them. I saw like one individually twice. And I never had a problem. Like, I never took them out because I didn't think they were a problem. So then
So what did Demo say about them?
he didn't, like, he just said they weren't, because, okay, the moment I saw one, I went online and I was like, I started searching up, right? But as we all know, the internet isn't very credible half the time. But it said like they reproduced like crazy. So then I went to Demo and I was like, hey, I have these. Like, are they going to be an issue? Like, should I take it out? Will it be an issue? I didn't really ask about my seahorses because I didn't really figure it would be a problem to my seahorses, but he does know it's my seahorse tank that I'm talking about.
Sophie, make them come out.
Pardon?
Use your feeding to make them come out. Get more food, make them come out.
Oh.
Bedtime.
You can't really see them anymore.
Good night, seahorses. That
Look,
happens
now
to
they're
mine
out.
too.
Now they're like dancing and yeah, look.
No, hey, don't take it away, Mom.
Come
We still
on.
want to eat. We don't want to go to bed yet.
Happy they are. And they don't care about the dark. They're like, whatever.
No, they're home. We can still eat.
So basically the starfish weren't a problem in your tank. And that's the thing that I'm trying to say is we talk about something that can be a problem. If they all of a sudden explode all over your glass and you see in Sophie's tank, there's 2 seahorses. It's, how many gallons is it?
35.
35. If you see 35 starfish on the glass, there's a problem. We need to figure it out. If you see one, just watch your organics. That's it. There's not a true forever answer for any of this, but it's just about figuring out your tank and figuring out your seahorses and keeping them safe, of course, but not freaking out every time there's anything, right? All right, I'm going to make you not big so we're not invading your privacy here. Sorry.
Here, I was just going to turn the light back on.
Oh, okay.
Hey, hold on.
Let's make them the center of attention. What's their names again? I'm so terrible. I can't remember my own kids' names, so excuse me.
The male is Fitz, and the female is Dot.
Okay, where's Dot? I need Dot to do some dancing. Come on, Dot.
She's over here. Come on.
She's like, but I'm not starving now, so I'm not going to do what you want now.
Dot.
Now I'm chilling.
Come here.
No, look, this is how smart seahorses are. Like you guys saw when she turned off the light, they were chasing that food like, don't take my food away. Now that the light's back on, they're like, you're doing something. Your tape record, you're doing something. I'm not giving in. I'm not doing it. They're so smart.
It's all take me to the food, Mom.
Why are you taking me up here? I don't care about this.
He let go.
Yeah, and he's gonna go back to where he was. He's like, no, I'm done, Mom. You guys, they know it's lights out time, so they're like, you're going off our schedule. We don't get it. Nope.
Sadie will go to one dish and finish all the food in that dish because I dish feed. And then when she finishes hers, she'll go to an empty dish and ask for more food. Like, you forgot to fill this one, Mom.
Yep.
And have multiple dishes, because of Dandy. He doesn't get around the tank very well, so I try to feed him, where he is, so he doesn't have to go anywhere. But she'll go to one of the other dishes that's empty and sit there after she's eaten a full meal and look at me like, "There's no food in here, Mom."
Yeah. All right, Sophie, turn their light off. They don't need they need their rest. And Rick said, and please be careful backing up to replacing rock as a way to get rid of critters is it can be dangerous because you can restart the cycle. Ray, do you have any thoughts on that?
Just cycle the rock before you do the switch.
Yeah, but if someone sorry, I'll turn my camera back on, guys. So if someone has aptasia, someone has bristleworm, someone has whatever, and Bella has this problem, and she's like, okay, I'm going to remove all my rock and replace it with new that is either dry or I've cycled it or whatever, but I'm going to do that because I want to get the rock that has the bristleworms out. So what would you think about when you're considering that decision?
Anything that's connected to the system, sump, or any filters or anything that are connected on, you've got to make sure that there's no chance that even one is left there, because if you have one, you're going to have more.
Truth. And I was at the other aspect of it, but what you said is right on. But I was also thinking just that you have to, your original point, that you have to make sure the nitrogen cycle doesn't get disrupted. So if you don't know what that means and you're keeping seahorses or fish, you need to look it up or watch one of our videos, because the nitrogen cycle is everything in an aquarium.
But it's simple to cycle new rock, and I'm not sure what that Carib Sea stuff is, but I can't believe that it doesn't need cycling.
So time out.
If it comes in dry.
For anyone that is in an emergency situation and you don't have cycled rock and you've got to for whatever reason, we can absolutely walk you through making a tank safe for seahorses in 10 minutes, right? But that's not the right way, and that's not the long-term way. The right way and the long-term way is to make sure that you have either enough media in the sump or in the tank to compensate and create that good bacteria that's handling the nitrogen cycle, so that you don't have to worry about using things like Prime or any of the products that can save a situation. So yeah, we can help anybody in an emergency situation, but in a situation of removing all your rock, I would say, do you have a sump? Do you have media in the sump? I love K1 media reactors because they won't get bristleworms. They're very safe and they're plastic, right? So there's different kinds of filtration that you can use to compensate for not using rock. Holly has a completely plastic tank. How do you do that, Holly?
I keep all my biofilter in the sump. The only biofilter material I have in the tank and I don't even really count on that, would be the Robert King char chambers.
And so you've got different bio and mechanical filtration in the sump, including a huge skimmer. And so you can keep your tank completely artificial.
Yeah, I run K1 media and bio balls are the two materials that I use.
All right. Sorry, I'm trying to read comments as I tried to play it off like I was good enough to read comments while I was live. I'm not. But if I missed your comment, guys, please ask it again. What else we got? Harlequin shrimp. Yeah, no, nothing anything. Okay, so Bella, what you're doing though is you're replacing slowly and adding stability with the rock, I'm assuming. So I've done that before too, but the key thing is call me, message me. I can tell you how to make a K1 media reactor. I can tell you how to pre-cycle it in a couple of days. It won't be efficient to run the tank, but you can cycle it to a point where you can put it in and it will cover any kind of problems. The other key is if you're in an emergency situation, Prime is a godsend, right? You can add Prime to any tank and it buys you 24 to 48 hours where nothing nitrogen cycle wise is affecting the seahorses. I don't always say that live because it's not an answer. It's buying a minute, right? It's not the way to do it. But go ahead, Holly.
I would think, though, if you're replacing rock slowly, then the pests are slowly moving into the new rock because their rock hasn't been removed yet.
Yep.
Is the one issue I see with that.
You got to take it all out at the same time as you're checking the rest of the tank and the filters and everything.
So let's be real. If someone wanted to get all their rock out because they have bristleworms, which I don't know that I would remove all my rock for bristleworms, just to be clear. But if that was the case and that's what they wanted to do, how would you handle it, Ray?
Well, just like I said, the new rock, if I was going to use rock, then I would put it in a separate system and add the ammonia to it, get the cycle going. And once the cycle appeared to be done, then I would challenge it with an amount of ammonia, which would depend on what the tank it's going into is going to have to handle. You know, like if you've got a lot of fish in the system creating a large bile load, then you're going to want to challenge it with a greater amount of ammonia than if you've only got, say, a pair. So when you challenge it, you add the ammonia, and then you add it at night, and then let it sit overnight, and then you check it in the morning. If it's gone, the challenge has showed that it's effective. And
so
then
he went through that really quick. So I have a couple questions just for Ray, even though I know the answers. So number one, what do you mean by cycle the rock? And then number two, when you said add ammonia to a certain whatever, depends on your tank, would you not say that 2 ppm is adequate for any tank?
No, it's adequate for a couple. First of all, it's going to depend on tank size. If you've got a 100-gallon tank and you've got 2 in it, or if you've got a 35-gallon tank with 2 in it, there's a difference. But the more critters that you have, the more that system is going to have to be built up to handle it right off the bat. Because unless you're going to do something like when I had to set up a tank right bang up from scratch, from day one, I had to have seahorses in it. Unless you're prepared to do something like that, then you need to cycle the rock sufficient to handle the bile load that it's going to do when you do put it into use. So if you've got just a pair of seahorses in a 35-gallon tank, like Sophie has there, then okay, 2 parts per million ammonia is fine to challenge it. But if you've got my ab tank with 8 abs in it, and you want to change out things, you're going to have, and you're depending on that for your bile load, then you've got probably about 6 parts per million you want to challenge it with.
Gotcha. Okay, and so real quick, actually, here's my actual question. Is asking you what you mean by cycling too deep of a question? Does that need a whole different episode? And we've done episodes in the past. Anybody can look them up. But I feel like that's too deep a question to try to cover.
Yeah, we haven't done cycling in a while, but it is a topic all of its own, I'd say.
So if we don't have a guest next week, come back. We're going to talk about what you need to do, whether you're freshwater, saltwater, seahorses, reef, the basics to cycling a tank that are necessary to having that tank. We will talk about it next week if you're not sure what we're talking about. But yeah, I think that's the key, and just keeping that cycle adequate, whether it be, I mean, like if you're removing things, then
Now,
you've got to
see how
compensate.
I did mine when I converted my tank from live rock and substrate to bare bottom and artificial. The way I did it was I removed rock gradually over several weeks. And I
Yes,
wasn't
but you just said
adding
that
more
if you're
because I was
wait,
transitioning to bare
wait,
bottom.
time out. But if you're doing that for a pest problem, that doesn't work. You're the one that said that doesn't work.
Well, I
Because
didn't
then,
have, here's the thing is I had pests, and that was why
okay,
I did it, but they weren't creating a problem. They were just there and I didn't like them. And I was tired of dealing with the maintenance of the rock and all that. So I took them out, little by little, but I was going from all rock to no rock, not continuing to keep rock. So it worked
and
doing it
had a huge
slowly
sump.
because my biofilter in the sump was able to pick up and catch up as I removed the rock little by little. And then
Absolutely,
I
great
removed,
point.
last of all, was the sand. And I had gone from crushed coral, because crushed coral is horrible in a seahorse tank. Don't do it. But
The Zen's question. Go ahead.
yeah, because it traps it. It was I think one of the main reasons I had bacterial issues with the seahorses down the road, because it tends to trap food like underneath it and between. It has so much space between particles that it's easy for food to get trapped in it. If you use like a really fine sand, it's dense and it vacuums really well. Or, you can siphon it and you don't have that problem.
And her complete question was, if I didn't want to start with live rock and wanted to just cycle with minimal substrate, could I use something like crushed coral instead of sand? And how long would it take to cycle from nothing?
No way to tell her for sure.
Holly,
Mine, I want to say, because my grow out tank, I never used rock. It's completely artificial. And I want to say the complete cycle, there's ways to make your cycling go faster. I didn't really do that. I want to say it took a month or so, maybe even a little more.
There's a lot
Ray?
of variables, and like
Hmm.
Holly just said, you can add items to it to speed up the rate of it. Um, I again, like Holly, I prefer to let it go uh, just natural, and I just use an ammonia source, and in my case, it's just powdered ammonia chloride, and let it go through its cycle, then challenge it, and then use it. But on the other hand, like that barb tank that I had to set up, I used Chloromex instead of Prime. Um, but there is a way, if you know what you're doing, you can start them off right off the bat and continually check the ammonia and continually add the Chloromex until you get to the point where you can back it off. And then once it's all fully cycled, you just stop the Chloromex completely then. But I wouldn't advise anybody to try it unless they understand just exactly what they're doing and what to expect uh, while you're doing it, and to know that you can do it. But if you just, Like if you were to go away for a weekend while you're trying that, forget it. You lose the tank. I can't
You're
hear you.
muted, Kelly.
Sorry if any of you are here like, stop, Ray, stop. No, I'm kidding. He said very good information. I agree with all of it, but I would say it's not for newcomers because if you're starting out, you don't know what to look for and what to expect if things are going bad. And test kits don't always tell you everything,
Like
right?
even the grain size of
So,
the substrate is going to affect it. So one
right.
person
So,
might have everything similar, but a different grain size, and that in itself will have a different time period than what the other person would.
So let me answer the question the way I would. Let me start at the beginning. If I didn't want to start with live rock and wanted to just cycle with minimal substrate, I don't like substrate. Let's
Yeah,
scratch
you
that
don't
part.
need substrate at all to cycle. Let's just start there.
No, right. How long would it take to cycle from nothing? That's what I'm going to answer. Okay, so I set up my 65-gallon Seahorse tank, and I had man-made rock. So I will tell you, man-made rock is much harder to cycle because it's porous and everything, but there's nothing. There's no seed, there's no nothing. So it took a lot longer with like fake stuff trying to cycle a tank. So my actual answer to this question is what I do if I'm ever thinking about a tank or setting up a tank is I cycle
Yeah,
media,
that's
right?
how I do it.
So you can do that before you ever look at the tank. You can. I have a bucket of K1 constantly spinning. I have a power head in it. I have it constantly spinning. I had ammonia. We'll talk about the cycling in depth next week for anybody that's like, why do you need to cycle? What does that mean? We'll talk about it next week. But for a Zen Ginger that knows what cycling is, I have my media cycling and I've got all this K1 that's ready to go, right? I've used ammonia, I've tested, it's ready to go. The second I want to set up a tank, all I have to do is put it in a 2-liter bottle, 1-liter bottle, and add an airline. And then my tank can function because I've covered that nitrogen cycle by having that cycled media. It would be the same if you had safe, clean rock that you kept cycled in a bucket and you added it to your sump or added it to your tank. But if you're talking about setting up a new tank or you're new to this and you don't really understand the cycle, come to us next week. But also, if you're that halfway between where you know the cycle, you get it, but how can I do it and be sure of it when I don't know if I want to keep sand or rock or whatever, or I want to go completely artificial like Holly? It is either the sump or the media. It doesn't even have to be a sump.
Yeah.
You can put a K1 reactor in the back of any tank, right? It's literally a 1-liter bottle with K1 that spins and an airline. That's it. And if you cycle that media prior and make sure that it is apt and able to handle the bioload of seahorses, then it doesn't matter what you have in your tank. You don't need anything. Like Holly's.
Yeah. So what I'm cycling is all the biomedia in my sump, basically. But it's hooked to the tank, so for instance, getting the grow out tank ready, I have all my biomedia in the sump, but I then have my big 75-gallon tank, with all the decorations and stuff in it. So it's cycling for that water volume, and I'm using the ammonia like Ray talked about to get it to the parts per million cycled within 12 hours or 24 hours or whatever that time frame is. So it's really, you're cycling the media, not the tank itself, because I'm not relying on the decorations in the tank or anything to be a source of biological filtration. They're just there. All the
Right.
All the media is in the sump.
Well, and that's what some people misunderstand. That's why we're going to dedicate a whole next episode to cycling. But, you know, it's not how much you have in your tank, whether the sand is live, whether the rock is live. It's about making sure that you have adequate filtration for the seahorses. So if you want to do that with K1, if you want to do that with rock, if you want to do that with whatever, you can, but it's safer to do it with an alternative media. And then, like, I like rock in my tanks. I don't like sand, but I like rock, right? So I use rock to make a pretty design in my tank, but I'm not depending on it for filtration. It's just an added bonus. My filtration is either in sump or in, you know, a skimmer and for mechanical, and then the K1 for bio. And that's how I do it because it works every time. And you said also, Zen Ginger, Carib Sea is a good sand to your
I love
knowledge.
it.
You're hard
That's
headed.
what I use. I use Carib Sea live sand, and
You
I haven't
want
had a problem.
one Gorgonian, and the Gorgonian has to be added way after. Why? Why? No. So what I'm telling you is the new way. Look, I need to do a TikTok or something to get all the new people online. But the new way is really you can set up a tank before you ever get the tank, right? Because if you cycle that media prior and you have the filtration covered, you can do whatever you want with the tank. I mean, whatever you want. Anybody disagree or
Nope.
have a comment?
No, no.
Ray looks like he wants to.
Actually, I can't comment because I wasn't listening to you in the last couple minutes.
Ah!
I was doing a
But
search
did
on
that make
something, and so I got sidetracked.
no
Oh,
worries?
and I'll
So
say Rick's right because he says beneficial bacteria will grow on any surface in your tank, fake or real. And that's true, but I send my decorations to the bleach bucket every week or two.
yeah,
So anything
right.
on them is coming off. You know, I don't rely on that for a
But
source.
it's also a fact that if you have a more porous piece of rock and a lesser piece with less surface area, you're going to have less capability of that less porous one to handle the bio load than the one that's more porous.
True.
And most of the man-made stuff that I've ever heard about, I haven't had any personally, but years ago when I talked with people that were dealing with it on the forums in the States there, they told me that it wasn't near as porous as a decent live rock.
So we're gonna get to that in a moment. I just wanted to finish up with the Gorgonian. So I'm curious why Zen think that a Gorgonian has to be added later. Because I'm just curious. Like, are you worried about the Gorgonian? Are you worried about the tank? The Gorgonian is helping the tank, right? Like, in my opinion, I'm good to add them right away. But Zen also said, I kind of thought the live rock helped keep the pH stable, also with RODI.
No,
So I thought maybe crushed coral would be a good substitute. Let's talk about that.
doesn't. It's got nothing to do with the pH.
Why?
Your biggest
Why?
your biggest factor when it comes to a Seahorse tank, first of all, what's the word I want? The stuff, yeah, the whatever it is in there that maintains your pH normally, it's not going to be in short supply. So if you have a pH that's too low, it's because you don't have enough gas exchange at your surface of your water. So it has nothing to do with rock or not. You can have tanks with no rock at all, and it's not going to be any worse as long as you've just got a system to handle the bio load, and then as long as you have that surface motion there. If you don't have that gas exchange, then your chemistry of the water makeup changes, and without getting that, how do I say it? Without getting that gas change and getting oxygen back into the tank, then that chemical makeup turns it to a more acidic state. And the gas exchange, once you get that stabilized, the pH will rise again, and it'll be limited by the I can't get that word out of my or into my mouth here. Buffers, that's what I want to say. The buffering salts that are in the water there will keep it from going too high, but they won't keep it from going too low if you don't have that gas exchange. Sorry to get so screwed up there, but this is what I live with, cognitive impairment.
No, you did. You explained it. We got it. What you're saying? Anybody else comment on that?
I never even check pH. I've never had a problem with it. I think I checked it when I first started my tank years and years ago, and it's something that I never check.
If people really think about it, though, seahorses in the wild go through a lot of changes that your tanks never go through. They'll get through specific gravity changes if they're into areas of a lagoon where maybe there's a sewage one there, and on land they have a great big storm and the fresh water runs out and into that lagoon, and it lowers the specific gravity of it. And the effluent also will change the pH. So they're very resilient to things like that.
Yes.
Now, however,
I remember Dan never tested any of that stuff.
No, I don't. I don't. And that's one of the reasons, though, I don't do coral and stuff or that. Like I was talking about the upkeep when I had live rock and all that. I did have some corals. I did have, a few things. And I'm like, this is just too much when I'm trying to work also. And I just didn't have
all that. No, what she just said is the key. It depends on the tank you're trying to create.
Yeah, what else you have.
If you want to keep seahorses, we can show you how to do it with plastic media, and creating that biological filtration and doing a plastic tank. We can also show you how to, do gorgonians and macros that I love, right? And I still also use media to back me up on the biofiltration. But I mean, like, as far as if you're wanting a tank with seahorses that have real coral, real's not a good way to say it. Gorgonians are coral, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you difficult coral that need lighting, that have specific temperatures, that's where you get into trouble, right? Because you want to keep your seahorse tank at a lower temperature. The coral needs higher temperature. There's all these things. But bottom line is, if you're trying to do some sort of mix, then you're going to run into worrying about all of these things. And pH is just not a worry in an average seahorse tank. Sorry. I hope I covered it.
I'd like to comment further on the gas exchange, please. Okay.
Yes.
I encountered a lot of people who swore up and down that I was wrong, that they increased all the motion at the surface there to get that better gas exchange. Excuse me. And their pH was still low. So then, and this, unfortunately, it was people more living in apartments than living in houses. But there were people living in houses that still had the problem. So what I would tell those people, take an air pump, take it outside, and take a sample of water, tank water, and measure your pH first. And then after you're running it for half an hour or so outside, take another reading And if your pH has increased at all, then if you also are doing enough to make the water have sufficient turmoil to surface and still not increasing it, then the problem is you don't have enough oxygen in the room that you have your tank. That might even be the whole house or the whole apartment, but you then have to investigate getting fresh air supply into that surface of the tank. Have I got everybody confused now?
No, I got it.
Yeah.
And that I think was kind of what Robert King was thinking about his situation, I think.
But he's thinking he had an
Got
oxygen
not
supply
enough
problem.
oxygen. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but he's been doing it for so many years and it's in the same house. I can't believe that conditions are going to change for that. This is something that is not something that comes and goes in a home
Yeah.
for the most part. It's something that's inherent due to the either the home itself or the habits that the homeowner has. Like some people always have their windows open. There's other people that always have their windows closed all the time. And there's a great mix of in between stages. But there are also homes that just aren't constructed sufficient, even with windows open, to get a proper flow through of a good fresh air supply. In my case, I didn't have a problem because I had a big double core heat uh, heat recovery ventilator. But the reason I had that in wasn't for the fresh air. It was because of the humidity aspect, because of the 1,000 gallons of water in the basement.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, I just wanted to be sure on that because a lot of people are still going to have the problem, even if they have sufficient turmoil at the surface and
Yep.
not know why.
Yep. Good stuff. Sorry. I'm distracted, you guys. I'm so sorry. But I did see that Rick said he's willing to come on as a guest. So
I messaged Rick the link.
what?
I messaged Rick the link, so he's
Okay.
got it on Messenger.
But I don't want him to come in until he's a guest. So Rick, reach out to me on the side so that I can
Sorry?
post some advertisements and put some ads up and tell people that you're coming
Yeah.
so you can reshare and etc. And then maybe next week we can make you the guest, but also discuss cycling. I mean,
He's probably cycled a hell of a lot of tanks.
Yeah, I would say I bet he's got a lot of experience in that.
or maybe we'll make Rick next week and then cycling the week after, or vice versa. I'm not sure. But Rick, reach out to me because we can't wait to talk to you live. You've given us so many awesome questions and, provided answers also. And so we can't wait to talk to you further. It'll be great. Sophie's doing a project. Anything else, Sophie?
No.
Sophie's like, just let me finish my homework. God dang it.
Yeah.
No, it's okay. I'm just making like clay things. I just have like tiny little clay things, but
But for tonight, guys, I am gonna have to call it because I have to work like super early. So, if we didn't answer your question, obviously make your question in the comment section. We do go back and look. We will cover it. Hopefully we can get Rick in either this coming week or next week. And I absolutely want us to cover cycling because we talk about this stuff like it's nothing. We're like, oh yeah, just make sure it's cycled, and we got to make sure it's the right, ammonia ppm. And anybody new that watches this would be like,
If you're new to it, it's confusing.
Right. I remember being terrified of cycling a tank. So I want to be the person that makes sure it's easy for anybody new. So that's my 2 goals is the next 2 weeks, Rick and cycling. We're going to work out which is which and how we're going to do it. But for tonight, guys, we're going to say Happy Wine Wednesday. Of course, we'll be back next week. So, either way, we'll be back. But let's say Happy Wine Wednesday, guys. Ray.
Okay, good night all.
Say Happy Wine Wednesday. So,
Happy wine. I don't have a drink. Happy Wine Wednesday.
Ray.
Happy Wine Wednesday. Cheers.
Okay, happy Wine Wednesday.
All right. Here we go. We'll see you next